Mr. Antunes, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great to be here.
Now, I know economists like yourself always warn us journalists not to make too much out of 1 month's numbers. But how do you see, what do you see as the significance of these numbers for November? And then feel free to put them in a larger context.
No, I think generally this is good news. And yes, of course, you want to be careful with 1 month. But what we've seen is time and time again here through this pandemic that as the economy's reopened, we've seen the job market really resilient, picking up again. And with the numbers in November, we're actually slightly above, I would say, where we were pre-pandemic. So that is very good news. The unemployment rate, just to correct you a little bit, the unemployment rate is actually 6% nationally today, in comparison to 5.7% where it was in 2019. But remember, 2019 was a very good year for labor markets, and we hit a record low in terms of the unemployment rate in that year. And when you look across the provinces, some really important declines in the unemployment rates, especially in the eastern provinces. In Quebec, unemployment rate down to 4.5%. So what the problem is now is one of almost, and we're seeing it in the job vacancies, it's almost around the shortage of workers that is going to constrain and hold back the economy.
The only reason I ask about putting it in context is that some people have suggested that this could be a 1 month blip because of certain clouds on the horizon, and they're especially talking about the disruption to the economy in BC, the disruption, yet more disruption in supply chains, and the Omicron variant and its potential, that people are saying we're keeping our powder dry in terms of predicting if this is going to be sustained.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of uncertainty for sure in the economy. And as we go forward, there are many risks, including the ones you've talked about. Certainly, we're hopeful that the supply chain disruptions, it's been a massive and really, in terms of the human cost and the animal cost, a terrible event that we've seen in BC. But hopefully the disruptions in terms of transportation infrastructure will be short-lived, and we won't see too much of an economic impact, nationally at least, in terms of those transportation bottlenecks. So in terms of Omicron, I would agree. There's a lot of uncertainty about what happens next. Will we see another wave of shutdowns? But there's, I think, hope in the sense that every time we've seen these wave after wave, we've seen less and less of an impact on the economy. And despite the fact that this variant is really scary, I think on the horizon we're also seeing treatments for COVID-19 coming along. So I think there's hope for positive news there.
Okay, if the positive trend, as we've talked about, is sustained, some economists, I don't know if you're among them, are suggesting it could mean that the Bank of Canada, looking at this sort of robust growth, might move ahead its increase in interest rates expected this spring, that could actually be advanced. Some people are saying that could be good news in the fight against inflation. Your thoughts on that?
Well, certainly I think this is a challenge for the bank at the moment. The bank wants to maintain credibility, and we're already seeing inflationary pressures quite high across the board. So yes, I think this is going to be a challenge for the bank, and possibly we'll see the bank react more quickly earlier next year rather than later next year. And really, I think it's the bank's impact in terms of raising interest rates. We need to remember that it's really an issue around credibility. We need to ensure that people believe that inflation is going to come back down to zero, so that we don't start getting, expectations around higher wages and in terms of employees and expectations in terms of higher costs in terms of firms. We don't want that vicious cycle to take off. So it's really about the Bank of Canada setting the credibility and anchoring expectations. And I think to do that, they will have to likely react a little more quickly, certainly, than what was previously planned.
Okay, I want to get to what we're looking ahead to. December 14th, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is going to be presenting her economic update to the nation. What are you watching for, and what would you hope to see in that update?
Well, certainly the economy has rebounded and has come back, and I think there's still a lot of wherewithal in the economy. If you look at household balance sheets, they're in great shape. We've seen the support programs that the federal government and some of the provinces have put in place really hold up household incomes through this pandemic and recession. So I think what we want to see is, a little taking off of the gas pedal, if anything, at least in the near term, until we see essentially some of these inflationary pressures come off. Now, I know there's a lot of talk around holding up certain segments of the economy. I certainly, with Omicron coming along, we're going to see a tougher time for tourism industries and for air transportation, for example. So if we are targeting certain measures at those, I certainly think we might see some of that. The other thing I'm very hopeful for is that, as with some of the provincial governments, we'll see perhaps better than expected results on the revenue side. Not only are household balance sheets holding up well, but so have business profits. So hopefully we'll see some good news in terms of perhaps smaller deficits that we've tacked up over the last year and a half.
Okay, Pedro Antunes, thank you very much. We will watch that economic update with interest. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Martin. It's a pleasure.